Hey guys, my name is Stephen Tamman, and today I want to talk about some of the cool subtitling that YouTube does automatically for you when you upload your videos. So, after processing for a while, YouTube will actually automatically generate subtitles for your video. And so, this video, for example, contains all of our conversation in English. And so, you can see down here at the bottom part of the video, you have a option for turning on subtitles. So when you turn on subtitles and you start the video, you'll see that the word by word, the speech in the video will show up at the bottom of the screen. And so that's useful enough on its own. But what many people might not know is that YouTube actually makes a full transcript as well. And so to be able to match up the text with the speech, of course, the time information is necessary. But you can actually open up the transcript by clicking on the three dots here underneath the video and clicking Open Transcript. And so this transcript actually syncs with the video as well. And so you can have both the subtitles and the transcript at the same time. And so these things do operate slightly differently though, because the subtitles, as I said, kind of go a little bit word by word here, but the transcript goes line by line. But one of the big benefits of the transcript versus subtitles is that you can actually scroll in the transcript. You can go back and pause the video and reread some of what has been discussed, or you can even look ahead and maybe jump to something that interests you, because when you click here, it actually takes you right there in the video. And so this is actually hugely beneficial if you are trying to skim and find something. However, one of the pain points here is that finding things, as in with Control F, like this, so if I look for the word because, you can see that it does show up in the transcript, but it's still not perhaps quite as seamless as you might want. And if you ever want to do anything more powerful, you're kind of limited just having it in the window here. So the other thing I want to cover in this video, now that we've gone over the automatic subtitles that you can view on your videos and the transcript that syncs along with the video, and not to diminish the utility of these things, I am quite happy with the success with which YouTube transcribes the videos. It's not completely perfect all the time, but it's within high enough accuracy that it's eminently useful. So this is just going to be a little bit step above what you can do automatically if you want to give a text file to your users so that they can do perhaps some more advanced things. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to copy the text of the transcript here. So just scroll down and copy the whole thing. And then we're actually going to paste it into a text editor to clean it up a bit. So I'm using the text editor Visual Studio Code. This is the text editor I use and recommend, but you could also use something like Notepad++ or any of other various options to do similar things to what we're going to do today. So when you first paste it into the text editor, you'll notice that the timestamps are on lines above the text. And this is kind of annoying because typically how you'd want to do this is you'd want to read the first line, then the second line, then the third line, but they're kind of broken up here, and that's not so great. So the first thing that you may want to do, if you do want to do this sort of thing for your users, is to go ahead and move everything on the same line. And so I'm going to give a little bit of a crash course here into using regular expressions to do this. And so what regular expressions are at a high level is they are a syntax language for doing find and replace. So to open this up in Visual Studio Code, I press Control H, and that is the find and replace menu here. And you'll notice that I have this little dot with an asterisk next to it. And that is what you need to highlight if you want to do regular expression stuff. So what I want to do is find every line that is a time, and then I want to move the line after it onto the same line as the time. So that way we'll have all the text over to the right of the times, and it will be much easier to read. So to do this, we need to match, you see here, 2 digits, and then a colon, and then another 2 digits. So it turns out that regular expressions give you a way to match a range of characters. So for us, we want to match any character 0 through 9. So to do that, you open a square bracket and then do 0 through 9, and then you close the square bracket. And so that will match exactly one character that is a digit. So it so happens that the numbers here, because the video is less than an hour, all begin with 2 digits exactly. So we're going to go ahead and match exactly 2 digits. And so you can see highlighted here, this is one of the nice things about VS Code, is that it actually highlights all the matches before you do anything. And so, okay, now we're matching all 2-digit clusters. But what we want to do is match 2 digits, a colon, another 2 digits, and then a new line. So I'm just going to go ahead and type that out. So we type out a colon, and then we match another 2 digits with the same thing we did the first time. And then to match a new line, you use a backslash to escape the character, and then you type N. So this is actually now matching all of these timestamps here. And what we want to do is take the timestamp and then move everything on the next line onto the same line as it. So to preserve the text that we match, so if I were to go ahead and run this right now I'm finding all of this, but I'm not replacing with anything. So if I wanted to completely clear the timestamps, I would actually just do that. But it can be helpful to actually keep the timestamps around, because that way your users will be able to see exactly where in the video things are. So like I said, that's one way. If you want to completely clear the timestamps, you just replace this regular expression with nothing. But what we want to do is a little bit more advanced. We actually want to keep the timestamp, but then we want to move the text onto the same line as it. So there are things called capture groups in regular expressions, and the syntax for those are parentheses. So what we're going to do here is put parentheses around the actual timestamp. So the 2 digits, the colon, and then the next 2 digits. And we're going to go ahead and capture that. And what that means is that if you use here in the replace, if you put a $sign and then the number of the capture group, so here we only have one capture group, so it's capture group 1, this will actually replace everything we just did. So everything we just matched here inside the parentheses, it will just replace it in the replace text you have here. And this is what makes regular expressions so much more powerful than normal find and replace, because you get to define how you use the text that you match and exactly what you replace it with. So in our particular case, we're probably going to want to keep the numbers, and then we want to get rid of the new line. That's why we didn't include it in the capture group. But maybe we'll stick a space after the timestamp. So if we don't stick a space, then all of the text is going to get squashed right next to the timestamps, just like that. So that's not what we want. So we could just do one space, but I kind of like putting a dash in between. So I just added space dash space after the timestamp. And that means that all of the text will get moved onto the lines with the timestamps, but just with a space and a dash in between here. All right, so that is how you get your timestamp file here, as with lines by line having the timestamp at the left and then the text at the right. And so this makes it much easier to read than when you have the timestamps between the lines of text. So you could go ahead and stop here. If you want to do a couple more advanced things, you might also think about getting rid of filler words. So one word, for example, that I sometimes have in my speech that doesn't really contribute any value because it just is me catching my thoughts, trying to think about what to say next, is the word So you might be tempted to just take the word and then replace it with nothing. But the problem is it can sometimes show up in words. So if we scroll until we find an example, scrolling. Well, I believe there is an example somewhere. Let me see. All right, so here's an example that I found. It did take me a little bit there. So we have all of these ums that we've highlighted, but you can see here that on line 407, we have the word circumstances, which actually happens to contain the letters U and M in it. So if we were to just go get rid of ums everywhere by just replacing on the text there, well, then you'll notice that that word suddenly becomes circumstances, which is definitely not what we want. So we could be a little bit smarter by just replacing the ums that have spaces around them. Now this will catch most things. You'll see here that will get rid of most of the ums that we now have highlighted. But you see this at the end of line 452. Well, that's not getting matched because there is a new line there. So maybe if we do space and then new line as the matching group, well, you can see that now we're matching the ums at the end of lines as well. So this actually should work for us. If we run this, so we're going to take space and then either match a space or a new line, and we replace, we're actually going to get rid of all of the ums. Now, we will probably actually want to replace these with a space there, because if we don't, then we're actually going to shift the text right next to the dash there, like you see there. So what we probably want to do is actually replace the regular expression that we're going to use there with a single space, and then that will actually offset it so that we keep the spacing around the dashes. And so now, if this regular expression may have accidentally added a space places because we may have had an in the middle of other text, we can actually just search for two spaces and see if we have any matches for simply two spaces in a row. And if you do, then you can replace those. And then your file will be completely free. For myself specifically, I also find that I say the word right a lot. And so as you can see here highlighted, we have many cases of me just using this as a filler word as well. Now, the more difficult thing about this one is that sometimes the word right actually does mean something in context. So these two cases here don't mean anything. This one doesn't mean anything. But here you can see it's part of the word righteousness. So we might do that the same thing we did before, where we were matching just on spaces. However, it is possible here for this word to actually mean something in context. So let me see if I can find an example of this as well. So here's a couple examples. On line 137, we're using right as an adjective. So emphasizing is probably the right word. If we were to just get rid of the word right everywhere, then that would get cut out, and that's not what we want. If we scroll up a little bit here, then you'll see that we're also using it here on line 93. So seated at the right hand of God. So if we got rid of it everywhere, that one would get excised as well. So for other words like this, so right is one for me. Another one is, this is another filler phrase for me. If you want to remove these things, you're going to have to go through and just look at the highlights and remove them yourself. Now, the reason why you might want to do this is just to clean up the transcript some. So you can get rid of all of these things. And then if you actually combine all the text over time, you could just make it into paragraphs, just based on what you did in the video. So it would take some editing, but it would still take an awful lot less time than writing something from scratch. And so this sort of thing that I'm showing here with highlighting and finding and replacing and using regular expressions, this is the sort of reason why downloading your transcript and putting it into a text file can let you and your users do some of these things that you can't quite do so well when you just have the transcript interface here on YouTube. And so one last thing that I want to talk about regarding this having the transcript in a text file is that it allows users to much more effectively search for things as well. So for one thing, they can use regular expressions when they search, as we've kind of gone over, but it's also way more streamlined than kind of searching on the page, which kind of works. But when you're here, if I wanted to go look everywhere the word eternal is used, in this transcript, it's really easy. I just can cycle through the meanings and then I can go read the few lines above and below each usage to get the context. And that sort of thing just isn't as easy when you're on the YouTube interface. All right, so another thing I would like to discuss in this video, and this one's going to be a little bit more advanced, is what happens if you want to dynamically generate links to the timestamps in the video for this. So YouTube does support linking to specific times in the video. If you right click on a video, you see you can copy the video URL at the current time. And if we go ahead and paste this, you'll see that the time is given here in seconds. So if we want to copy this, then you see how we have this string here. Well, let's go ahead and copy everything here except for that time there in seconds. And so for now, we'll just keep this aside for a moment and we'll paste it there in a cell in a Google Sheet here. So if we grab all of the timestamps that we've now cleaned up a bit, and we grab all of this text and then we paste it into a spreadsheet, let's see if it's possible for us to go ahead and concatenate the time in seconds here with this string to generate links to the times that we want. So the way for us to do this is we're going to have to split up everything we see here, and we're going to have to get these things here where you see minutes, seconds, into a seconds format that we can process with math functions. So the first thing for us to do probably is to go ahead and split up these strings into multiple columns. And so you do that by selecting the data and then doing split text to columns. So now we have the numbers in this column and then a dash and then the text there. So let's go ahead and insert a few columns there. So we'll just get the other stuff out of the way. And what we want to do now probably is format this column as text, because that will let us do substring things on it. So here we can extract the first part of the string using a function called regex extract. And so the first parameter to this is a string, which we pass that cell, and then we write a regular expression here. And the capture group in the regular expression will be what ends up showing up in this cell. So we want to first grab the minutes here. And so that's going to be everything before the colon. So to do that, we can just grab any characters and then match the colon. And then we don't need to capture the other ones because we only have one thing in the capture group here. So if we do that, we'll see that right now that's 0, and that's what we want. But if we go and we paste this for everything, then as we scroll down, you'll see that this is actually grabbing that first number there. So we can actually do a very similar thing for grabbing the second capture group, except we are now going to capture the second bit. So rather than capturing the thing before the colon, we are going to capture the thing after the colon. And in doing this, you'll see that now we can capture the number of seconds as well. And it looks like, oops, that did not work. I don't know exactly what I did there, but let's go ahead and try that again. Must have messed something up when I copied it. Huh. Very strange. Oops, I think I know what that was. I think that's because I was not pasting correctly. I did Control-Shift-V. Select it all, and then we're going to paste. And there we go. Now we're grabbing the right values. Okay, so to get this as the times that we want, we are going to go ahead and multiply the minutes by 60 to get the number of seconds in the minutes. So we're going to go ahead over to this cell, multiply that number by 60, and then add the number of seconds here. And this, that should not be percentage, that should just be a number. In fact, that should not be a number. We should give it a number with 0. Because we want an integer number of seconds. So if we go and we do this for everything in this column, we are now getting the number of seconds just like YouTube is expecting. So I left a blank column there because now this string over here that we went and got from YouTube, we can actually go paste in here and then copy that all the way down as well. And then we can actually concatenate these things. So we're going to take the text in this column, and then we're going to use an ampersand, and then we're going to take what's in this column, and we're going to just stick them together. And here, if we actually expand this out, you'll be able to see that we are going to grab all of the timestamps here. So we go down, we do this all the way there, and then we are grabbing the timestamps. And so this is what we want to have links embedded. Now, what we could do after this is we could paste these links into the thing. So if we go ahead and get all of these, we could then have links embedded just like this into our text file. All right, so now that we've gotten these YouTube links, the next thing we'll want to do is reconstruct the text, perhaps in HTML, just as an example, to show you how you turn these links into actual timestamps. So if you look at all these columns, we probably have everything we need here. So in this column here, we have the actual link. In this column here, we have the timestamp that we'll want to display. And then, of course, we have the other columns here that we can use just as we were using them before. So if we scroll over a little bit, let's go ahead and write a formula to get all of this displaying in an HTML format that will work appropriately. So we're probably going to want to make a link. So we'll do a href equals, and then this. And here, what we're going to want to do is concatenate what we were just doing here as a string with what we have in the value of the YouTube links. And so we are going to go ahead and concatenate it with that value, and then close the, I think we actually need to, I apologize for a second there, it lost my train of thought. So we actually need to include quotes here in the HTML. So you do that by using double quotes. And so we're going to double quote to get the href part in quotes here. And then we stick in the link that we dynamically generated there. And so where we are right now is we have a href equals to a link in quotes. And so what we're going to want to do after that is close the tag and keep going. Okay, so now we have the href tag closed. And then what we're going to want to do is concatenate with what we want to display in the link. And so to do that, we are going to go over and use the timestamp that we generated here. Okay, so at this point, we need to then close the link tag, which we will do with the closing of a link, the closing anchor tag there. And then we're going to want to keep going in the text on each line. So to do this, we're going to then concatenate with what we had before. So we're then going to want to concatenate with space and then dash space. And then we can just tack on the end here for the H. And then to keep things on different lines in HTML, we may as well add a line break for good measure. And so we'll do that with strings because we're concatenating everything here. And then let's see if this looks right to us. And if we do, then we'll go ahead and we'll do this for all of the links. Okay, so we have a link, a href, and we have the link in quotes. Then we have the timestamp, and then a dash, and then what it is, and then a new line. That looks right. So let's go ahead and come all the way down here, and then we'll do that for all the lines. So you see, looks like quite a bit more text here. But if we go down and then we copy all the way up to the top, and then we go to an HTML file, I saved this one a little bit beforehand, and we paste all of them, then this looks like what we want, right? So if we go ahead and save this HTML file, let's see if it actually opens in the browser how we expect it to. So we're going to click on demo.html and see if the browser opens it how we expect. So if you see, we now made timestamp links. Now let's go ahead and just click on one, see where it takes us. So you can see that one, the link that we just clicked on, well, here, let me go back. It will show it purple now since we clicked on it, is for 318. So 3 minutes and 18 seconds. So 3 times 6 is 180 plus 18 should be 198. And if we look in the timestamp, that is exactly what we have. So the math is right. And it opens up us at 3 minutes and 18 seconds into the video, exactly what we want. Now, this was just a simple sample showing how you can use the powers of Excel, or rather Google Sheets here, to concatenate to build the sort of link text that you might want. Now, if you were to use something like Markdown, you could, of course, build Markdown links with this. But this is just an idea showing you that if you really want to get fancy, you can actually do some pretty cool things with the transcripts that YouTube automatically generates, and then give those to your user so that they can do things with them as well.